So what's up guys, I'm Black Ops Amazing, welcome back to another video. Now, after the video I made the other day where I spoke about a tweet on, of course, Twitter regarding COD Zombies and where it's gone, and especially focusing on the story and where that's at right now, comparing Ether to the Dark Ether, why most people think the Ether story is better. But I've forgotten there was something I wanted to talk about, was, well, what else could Treyarch have done? The Ether storyline, which happened between World at War and Black Ops 4 Zombies, was always going to end. That story went on for 10 years at that point, I think it was, from 2008 to 2018, which was BO4. So there was a 10-year-old story. Granted, we don't get Treyarch games every year, they are every 2 years, going on 3 now. So there was a total of 5 Treyarch games telling the Ether story for Zombies. Comparing that to other stories, other video games that we have out there, the God of War series for example, we've had, is it like 6 God of War games, including the spin-offs, maybe a little bit more, a bit less, but the story for that franchise is still the same all these years later. Yes, you could say God of War 1 was a reboot, but it was still connected to the old story, kind of like what Ether is to Dark Ether. There are other examples as well, so that does show that you don't necessarily have to end a storyline, even though Ether went on for 10 years. I think it could have gone on for another 10, it's just finding out the right moment when to end it, and if it still feels fresh and there's more story to tell, then you don't need to. But just before I continue on, I want to say that today's video is sponsored by HelloFresh. What exactly is it, you might be asking? Well, with HelloFresh you get fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. You can count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable, and that's why it's America's #1 meal kit. We've all got New Year's goals, and HelloFresh is here to help you achieve them. Skip the grocery store and take control of your time and budget with delicious recipes delivered right to your door. HelloFresh's latest line of meals featuring robust flavours and filling portions are ready in less than 15 minutes, so you can enjoy the taste and quality with recipes like falafel power bowls, seared steak and potatoes with béarnaise sauce, and Southwest pork and bean burritos. Eating fresh and healthy is something that we all want to do, but sometimes don't, so this is a really great way to start doing it, especially for the new year. So to try HelloFresh for yourself, all you've got to do is click the link below, where you'll get 21 free meals plus free shipping, which is amazing, so go ahead and do that, and make sure that you try HelloFresh today. But back to what I was saying, another question is, did Ether, at the point of Black Ops 4, the end of that game, still feel fresh? Could Treyarch have told more story with that game? I would say yes and no. If they didn't decide to kill off the characters and plunge everything into the Dark Ether, what else could they have done? That's a difficult one because the whole cycle that we have in Zombies pretty much means that there is an end, and when you come to that, those same events repeat over and over again, which in a way is unfortunate having a repeating cycle, but that's the way they went with it. But like I just mentioned, with the God of War franchise for example, how the game in 2018 was sort of a reboot, but still a continuation, they could have done that. This is a video game, so really you can do whatever the imagination wants. You don't have to follow logic. I reckon Treyarch could have found a way to continue it if they wanted to, but they didn't. Ether finished, Dark Ether started, it is a continuation, but there's also a clear difference. That's the point where we are at right now, but the reason I wanted to make this video today is to just kind of go over other options that I think Treyarch could have taken. Perhaps options that would have been better, instead of semi-ending it in BO4 and then opening things back up again in Cold War. There are other things that I think Treyarch could have done. The first one being, they could have totally ended Ether altogether. Black Ops 4 was the total ending of this story, and they could have started a brand new one in Cold War, similar to how we had Chaos and that's never returned, even though now in Vanguard, Treyarch have made it clear that Chaos is now canon to the Dark Ether story. Instead, what they could have done is totally ended Ether, not continued it with the Dark Ether story, and given us a brand new storyline. I'm not saying Chaos should have continued, I don't think that was the best one either. There is a reason it never returned, because people just weren't as interested in it as they were with Ether, so why would you continue something that people aren't that invested in? So I wouldn't have done that, although it was kind of unfortunate the way it ended, how it was left on a cliffhanger and we never got to see the ending, but I still wouldn't have brought it back. But what they could have done is started a brand new story. No Richtofen, no Samantha, no other things that we've seen in Dark Ether return from Ether. We could have had a brand new universe, a brand new set of characters that we play as, and everything was totally fresh, because Dark Ether isn't. And in a way, I would say that kind of holds the Dark Ether story back. Because it's a continuation, we still compare it to what it used to be. Whereas if it was something totally new, yes, you're still going to compare, but not as much because it's its own thing. But I'm not 100% convinced on that because we do have the example of Chaos and how that didn't fully bring people in. So there's nothing to say that if they started a new story in Cold War and then continued it in Vanguard, that would have intrigued people as well. It might not have. The other option that I've had in my mind for a very, very long time, perhaps since the end of BO4, maybe even before this is something I've always wanted, and I would call it the Ether Chronicles, something that I've wanted to see ever since BO4 finished and they ended Ether, in quotation marks, was I then wanted to see us go back, but for Treyarch to tell us stories of other people that existed within the Ether universe. I wanted Treyarch to tell us the stories of other survivors that existed in Ether that we never heard of. I wanted to see the Ether timeline from their perspective, perhaps events that we didn't know of that happened that we didn't get to witness playing as Ultimus or Primus or any of the other cast of characters that we've played as. We know that all throughout the Ether timeline, there were other survivors out there. It wasn't just Victus or Misty, Malton, Stuhlinger and Russman. It wasn't just the 5 characters or the Call of the Dead cast. There were other survivors out there, and I've always thought it would have been cool once they finished the Black Ops 4 storyline and once they finished the story with Ultimus and Primus, is we then went back in time and we saw things play out from other survivors' perspectives, how things affected them and the troubles they had to go through to survive the zombie apocalypse. Perhaps they faced challenges that we never got to witness. We could have gone to other places that we didn't get to as the characters we played as. I think that would have been cool, and that way it also doesn't drag out the Ether storyline because they already finished it in Black Ops 4, so now we're not continuing it, we're just going back and looking at that same timeline, but from the view of different survivors. And that also would have been different because Ultimus and Primus, their main goal throughout the whole story was to either stop something or make it happen, whereas a survivor's point of view would have been to simply survive. That was never really something that was our priority playing as those characters that we did. I suppose besides from, I guess, the Call of the Dead cast and the 5 crew, surviving was their main goal, but Primus, Ultimus, they had a set mission, so did the Shadows of Evil characters kind of, and there were characters within Ether that we know of, such as Brock and Gary. What about if we played from their perspective, even though we know too much didn't happen to them besides from them getting themselves trapped in a cycle in Shangri-La? Their story could have been expanded on. Actually, if we ever saw a Shangri-La remake, I'd be interested in playing as them. Or there were scenarios in Ether, such as the outbreak at Doris. We hear that happen on radios very first time it happens. There are other cool events that we hear through radios, such as the initial outbreak at the Pentagon and other stuff. We only ever hear stuff like that happen in radios or through messages, ciphers, or characters talking about it. I would have actually liked to have played through those events. I think that one's more suited towards remakes of maps. That'd be cool to me, and all of that I think would suit that title of Ether Chronicles, telling the stories of other characters that existed in that universe. So Treyarch's options really were that one, go back and explore other stories. The other option was to start a brand new story, continue Ether in the way that they did in Cold War with the Dark Ether story, or the fourth one would have been just to not end Ether at all, and the events of Black Ops 4 would have played out totally different. I said in my previous video that one really wasn't too much of an option just because of what happened with Takio's voice actor. He isn't voice acting anymore, so we couldn't have had all of the Ultimus or Primus characters back together. We only would have had Richtoff and Nikolai and Dempsey. I suppose you could do that and add a brand new character in there, or one that we've already played as. Maxis could become a playable character, or Samantha. That would have been pretty good actually, playing as a grown-up Samantha along with Richtoff and Nikolai and Dempsey. But the main issue with that is because, like I mentioned, we were in a cycle, it's bound to repeat itself. We did break the cycle in BO4, but the only way for us to do that was to kill ourselves, so how do you reverse that? I've always been a person that says you don't have to end something just because it's gone on for a long time. If you can still find ways to make it feel fresh and tell new stories, then continue it by all means. You don't have to end it just because it's gone on for 10 years, or we've seen great examples of that. So those were just some ideas I had, and especially the Ether Chronicles one is something I've wanted for such a long time. I don't think we're going to get it now because we've got Dark Ether, and that's definitely continuing in the next game, but maybe somewhere later on down the line, or if we ever get a Zombies Chronicles 2, you can explore those options, playing older maps but with other characters. So yeah, it was just kind of an expansion of the previous video, but I wanted to make it because these were ideas that I've had for quite a long time, and Zombies has always been about theories and stuff that we want to see, what will we see in the future. I can especially remember back during BO1 and BO2 times, it was every other week or month, people were coming up with map theories, what's going to happen next, I'd love to see this as a map, or I'd love to see this happen. So it's kind of a bit of a throwback to that, even though we might not see anything like this. But yeah, there we go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Also, let me know your ideas for maps. What would you like to see? How would you like to see the zombies story especially progress in the future? Thank you for watching today's video. Drop a like rating if you've enjoyed. Make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest videos on the channel. And as always, we'll see you in the next one. Until then, goodbye.